Our sort of model is we just lead by example. This is what we do. If it speaks to you, awesome. I'm not like big on like being real preachy as much as I just sort of feel like it's sort of every surfer's responsibility. It is a blind spot that surfers and watermen have. It's changing.
That's Adam Paskowitz sharing his perspective on the responsibility that all of us have to protect the ocean. Much more from this legend of the water today on this Ocean Life podcast with me, Josh Peterson. As a father, husband, surfer, licensed captain, and general man of the water, Adam has continued the legacy that his father, Doc Paskowitz, set forth some 30 years ago of living life on the road and the ocean, experiencing nature in all of its rawest forms. Whether crossing oceans or walking a beach, Adam and family focus strongly on plastic reduction, leading by their example of removing plastic and making good decisions in their daily life use of it, with the goal to inspire all of us to do our best to keep this pollution out of our natural world. Adam's stories today of his family at sea and on the road are fun and inspiring and tie back to his days growing up in the nomadic lifestyle that the Paskowitz family is so well known for. If you like what you hear today, take 2 minutes and commit to using one less piece of plastic in your daily life. Trust me, it's really not that hard. Then for more entertainment, check out the documentary Surfwise on YouTube about the Paskowitz family and their adventures growing up on the road, chasing waves, and living free. Thanks for caring about the ocean, and thanks for being here today, sharing in the ocean life of Adam Paskowitz. Adam, first, man, thanks for taking time. I know you're a little sleep deprived with your new son, Solomon, coming into the world a few weeks back.
Yeah, it's crazy because, the last time I did this was like 8 or 9 years ago. And at first I wasn't that like convinced that I had the skills. And now I'm back in it. The wife and I are like so stoked. It's amazing.
Dude, congrats, man. It's kind of like riding a bike, right? Like changing diapers and all that stuff's like just riding a bike.
It literally is like riding a bike. It's literally like riding a bike. It's like like when the nurse handed me the baby, she was so quick about it. And it was just like, I just knew what I was doing. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fear about it. Like, whoa. So we're indoors this month, giving him a chance to acclimate. And then we'll get back to our kind of more nomadic surroundings. It's weird being in a house.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, man. And that's kind of how I was looking so much. You have such a rad YouTube channel and such a great Instagram. There's so much great material. So it's fun to watch your guys' lifestyle. And the way I kind of characterize it is, you're like a second generation semi-nomadic, ocean-loving family,
Yeah. I mean, I say I've been on tour for like my whole life, and sometimes I think about it like, damn, if you offer that up to most people, like what would happen if you literally did not have a home your whole life? How would you feel? Like it's very different than not, when you don't have like true roots somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really weird. I think of myself as being relatively normal. And then sometimes I think like most people would be really freaked out by that. And I'm totally not. Like, I just find, I find my way, like, wherever I am, I'm kind of like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, man. No, that's so cool. And I'd love to, we'll dive back and sort of hear about your roots of a youth and your family, your larger family that got you to today. But if you would, you mentioned you just had a son. And so you're stationary, you're at a home, getting him acclimated and everything.
Yeah.
But describe your normal lifestyle, right? You're traveling around. What's that like? What's your rig and your family situation? Give us the high level, if you would.
So pretty much we've been boaters for the last 10 years on and off. And but then we sold our boat in New Zealand. And so we've sort of for the last on and off year and a half, 2 years have been just four-wheeling it. We have like a off-road trailer, and then we have our kayaks and stuff, and then we pull by our old Land Rover, and then we've sort of been driving in and around the more less populated spots of North America, and that's sort of it's been a cool respite. It's been a cool thing. It's like very landy, like being on the land is very different than being at sea. My son Doc always says, Paul, the difference between being on land and being on sea is if you break down on land, you just wait for someone to come save you. And if you break down at sea, you just wait to die.
A little different.
Yeah. And so that sort of gives us like way more confidence. I think that we take risks now that we probably would not take on a boat. We'll drive into areas where we know we can't get food or whatever, and like extend all that. I don't really post a lot of the stuff that's ultimately, super dangerous, because I get freaked out about that someone's going to be like, oh man, what are you doing? But
child endangerment.
But we definitely get into tight spots, and I'm not 100% sure that social media is the place to promote being in really tight spots. And so our lives are probably a lot more tame on the
outward appearance.
Yeah, it's sometimes we get into gnarly situations, but that I think is all related to the fact that, like Doc says, is when you're on land, we're very confident about the fact like we'll find our way out of a situation. We were talking this morning. My wife was talking this morning about with a friend of ours how like I was approached by a Florida panther when we were in the Everglades, and how I found my way out of that in the middle of the night, and nobody got hurt. I didn't get eaten, but it was really close. Like it was, for a second, it was like, holy crap. But like I was totally prepared, and I felt like that's a good example. In the ocean, I think that sometimes things can get you that you can't see, or, no matter how good you are. But on land, it seems like you can just have your act together and be really careful about having the rules in place, and you can get out of most jams. We've been in jams, man. Jams.
Hey guys, I got to break in here real quick. We had a little audio hiccup at this point in the podcast with Adam. He had transitioned over to talking about sort of some of the fun stuff they're doing inland in mountains and in fresh water. So it was about 3 minutes that I had to chop out. So that's the context now. We'll pick back up in that conversation of talking about fresh water. I agree with you. It's like, it's so fun getting the kids, even myself, like floating down a crystal clear river that's like maybe 8 or 10 feet deep with your mask and snorkel and your full gear, and just like the motion of that. And then just the ability to feel the water differently than the ocean, it's cool. There's so much to do inland and fresh water that you adopt the activities and the knowledge in the ocean. You can apply it there. Like what you got to do.
Like surfing rapids. It's intense. And then, like as a surfer, you have such a different standard by what is fun. So like you'll be with Doc, I'll be with Doc like in a moving river, and people will be like, hey, get out of there. Like, they'll send the Coast Guard, the whatever rescue team. And you're like, what? This is just what? This is just a river, dude. And also, like, especially if you get in rivers where there's a lot of fish, especially around salmon.
Oh, wow.
It is unreal. So those, that's a new crossover for us. I mean, I'm not saying that we invented that, but that is a new crossover sort of vibe that we have, is ocean water behavior in rivers and lakes. It's kind of bitchin'.
Yeah, that's badass, man. So basically, once you guys you're stationary for a little bit here, you'll get back on the road. So what are you thinking next? I mean, spend more time inland, get back to the coast, a blend of each?
No, we are in the process of getting a new boat, understanding what it takes to get that all put together. We have a number of friends of ours that are manufacturers, and we're trying to put together the right situation, the right boat. We're definitely going back to sea in 2020 by hook or by crook. And, I think, we're just here for the month of December. In January, we'll go back to our camping lifestyle. The reason why we do the camping lifestyle is because we post up at a lot of beaches, and we pick up, Doc and I's hobby, obsession is we pick up plastic off beaches, right? We just do it. And just like my dad, that's what my dad taught me, how to do. So being housebound, it just feels weird that like it's raining today in Southern California. And so I know the kind of stuff that's floating out in the water. Like I just have a yearning to like be in like Seal Beach, Huntington, you know, a lot of LA County. It's just unreal the amount that's coming out. If you just catch it before, it's so weird. It's just right there. And so
right there,
it's just like, so we pick up as much as we can. And it's just today that's not happening. It's just, I'm indoors and it's cozy, whatever.
Changing diapers.
Yeah, it's cozy.
But I was looking too, and it looks like you guys have dedicated your year of travel to around plastic pollution, not just picking it up, but awareness. There's a lot of things you're doing. You're speaking. Just active, you and your family picking up plastic and everything. So, and as you mentioned, that came from something that you learned from your father, years back. And so, where are you taking that? I mean, what's your kind of goal with that, other than just helping to, reduce the plastic that we see in the ocean, which is just like, it's so heartbreaking to see it. But like, do you have a longer term goal or plan that, you're hoping to work towards with all this?
Well, we started this year, we started the Paskowitz Foundation, and it's a foundation for the active goal of picking up as much plastic as we can from beaches and from bays everywhere. Not just in Southern California. We're just starting here. And we did it sort of in honor of my dad. I feel like as a goal, our sort of model is we just lead by example. This is what we do. And if it speaks to you, awesome. I'm not like big on like being real preachy as much as I just sort of feel like it's sort of every surfer's responsibility. It is a blind spot that surfers and watermen have. It's changing. It is strange how many guys that I know that are great surfers and great watermen will just walk by. They'll just walk by plastic on the beach or their choices and their lifestyles. Certainly they're not saying anything, to their fans and followers. And I just am like, how's that possible? It's strangely impossible that so many great surfers and so many great watermen are blind to this subject. It's just weird. It's all of us too. It's like, it's not just them, it's me too. I just like, sometimes I just forget, like I'll grab a water bottle, it's just weird. Like it's just so part of the way we are. Anyway, so it's a bold choice. It's like, we know like it's pretty crazy, but we're going to do our thing and we're going to try to, do the best that we can with the resources that we can. And we hope people go, wow, that's cool. Look what that family did. Maybe we could do something like that.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love the non-preachy thing. It's like, I think leading by example is key because nobody wants to like have some issue pounded on their head. You could do that, but I think by just doing, and then people will pick up on it. And like that, I don't preach, but I just say, hey man, don't use straws. Grab, bring a to-go cup when you go to Starbucks, little things like that. Yep. And, and I'm a fan of that. And then I also think too, like, it's interesting being a surfer myself and being in Santa Cruz my whole life and seeing now people, my community starting to appreciate, I think, the ocean. Not that nobody didn't appreciate it in the past, but we all kind of took it for granted that you just show up. It's always there. It always has something for you to do. But now we're starting to realize that there is a lot more to it than that. And then we do need to do more than just show up and have fun and then disappear, and come back tomorrow, So I see what you're saying.
There's a responsibility of a resource, no matter how you slice it. There is a responsibility of having a resource that is so valuable, to you and your family and your community. One of my favorite people in the world is a lady from Santa Cruz, and she really inspired me, and she started with this whole thing where it was just like, she just picked up straws on the beach, and she just brought them all back to her local Starbucks, and she was just like 50 of these green things, and she's like, take these back. And I just was like, wow, that is really, and she really kicked off this whole straw movement. And I think what happens is that I think we are all imperfect in the way we are on this planet. There's no way to be a perfect planetary person. We use resources, and we're the whole world is based on petroleum-based stuff. And so I think that ultimately we have to accept that it's not going to be perfect. I think the role is that we all, if we're all also stewards. And so if you think about how many people go to the beach, it's a million times more than all the cleanups that are ever organized. Yep. And I think the idea is just to point it out. And then I think there's a tipping point where the attitudes will change. They're changing already. But I think that there will be a point where it's just, might take a generation where it's just not done, where we just do what we're doing now. It's just, we just don't do that anymore. You can think about things in society that we just simply do not do anymore. And, I see both sides of a lot of these issues because I'm around both sort of coasts. I spend a lot of time inland with hunters and, self-sustainable dudes and, guys that are essentially, what you'd call, that sort of, I don't want to say rednecks, but they're bushmen, bush sciences and bush guys. And they'll say the same thing that, damn, there's a lot of pollution in the rivers, and the rivers and the lakes are upstream from the ocean. And so you see that connection. I hate when we get into the political thing about the two sides of this issue, because we all live here. We all deal with the pollution that exists. And in the ocean, it's just really easy to see because there's so many of us there. And I think that ultimately, trends will change. I truly believe it. And I just think we'll all just kind of be the collective police of the beaches. We know that this stuff keeps coming, but so do we. What a coincidence, right? So if each person just becomes like, it's just what we do. And then I think it puts less pressure on the sort of the resources. And then I'm hoping science and, all those things take over. In the meantime, families like us, we spice adventure in with just like I say, the responsibility of a resource. So like when we cross oceans and stuff and we get into little places and little islands and little, the natural inhabitants in a lot of these places don't notice. Right. They just don't notice. But you can see they're surrounded by, in areas, even uninhabited atolls are surrounded with floating pollution. So we pick that up. Sometimes we've made the only people ever to have picked up the plastic that is floated into a certain island chain. Wow. And then what's so boggling to the mind is after we pick it up, what do you do with it? What do you do with 20 bags of random floating poisonous debris? And so you keep it with you, and then you take it to the next place. And then at some point, right, what do you do with it?
You find a place where you think they'll do something appropriate with it, but then until you get to that place, you got to keep it on board, and there's limited space. Right. I mean, I kind of see the conundrum there.
Every square inch. By the time we had left and started heading down to New Zealand, every square inch had some plastic debris. And then New Zealand doesn't want your deadly poisonous, right? Plastic pollution. So think about that. I sometimes think about that issue, like where does it go? And especially floating debris, where does it go? And so a lot of my friends are just like, hey, the idea is use less. And then I totally get that. But I'm like out there in the open ocean, and I'll say to them all the time, like people that I know that are like plastic zealots, and they'll be like, just let it go, just take a picture. And I'm like, I can't do that. No, you do. You just let it go. Just take a picture. I can't do that. No, there's an app where you can. There's an app, and you can take a picture, and then you send it to. I can't do that.
You're like, that's not going to help.
No way. It just does nothing for the people or the place. So, but I've seen some like amazing spots in the ocean, secret waves, and island chains that most people don't go to, and And those are the places I think that I'm going to hit up next. The next will be those places. I think that is my next mission. And so we'll get a boat. We have a technology that's going to help us sort of mush the plastic to smaller and smaller pieces so that we can carry more. It's extremely expensive. It's so funny about plastic. It's such amazing, not to just delve into plastic, but it's such an amazing substance. It's like,
it is,
it's so great. We thought it was just like totally benign. Getting rid of it is so expensive. Getting rid of plastic, recycling it, anything but just burying it and waiting for the next generation to deal with it. It's so expensive. It's like the worst and the best thing ever. So that'll be next year. And we're going to try to hit a bunch of these little places that we know where it's like, oh my God, wouldn't it be great to come in on a Thursday, surf all the bitchin' waves, hang out with the locals, and then just, take it, in a weekend, you could clean an entire bay,
Right.
And then just, and then just be like, hey, look how hard it was. I think that's the message. I think the message is, look how hard it was for us to clean this up. Be wise with the way you dispose of, the stuff that you have,
Yeah, good point. And just kind of lead by example, not lead, but to show your example to the locals there who might not totally quite get it yet, So talk about the boat you guys are thinking, because you've spent a lot of time yourself. You're a Coast Guard licensed captain. Yep. You guys have had sailboats. You've had sort of power cruisers. Yeah. What do you describe high level, what the boat that you're looking at putting together for your next sort of stint?
Well,
here?
Probably it's a custom build. Even if we go with a manufacturer that we're used to, somebody that makes white boats, I think that it's probably a custom build. There are a number of people out there making really bitchin' custom builds that are not just sustainable practices, but also have some amazing ideas, and we're investigating that. It comes down to range and safety and reliability. And so, I always say when things go bump in the night, like, what do you want to have underneath you? When things go bump in the night, how do you want it to go? So imagine, if you will, like there are people that I know that are like, oh man, try out our boat. And I'm like, that's super cool. But then I keep thinking like, okay, well, when things go bump in the night, is that what I want? Do I want to not know like some, right? Or is it better to have something that I truly have a better understanding of, like the equipment I know, and So like, for example, like when we were crossing the Pacific, we hit a whale like 1,200 miles from Hawaii, a dead whale. Normally when you hit a whale on a boat, it's catastrophic or can be catastrophic, especially a live whale. This whale was being eaten by sharks. And so, when you think about that, when you think about boat design and all that, you always have to think about the possibilities of what is the exponentially worst thing that could happen. In that situation, I was glad that the boat that I had was slow. But at the time before, I was like, God, I'm only making 145 miles a day. That's like a fast walk jog to Hawaii.
Right.
It's just a fast jog, like one of those Olympic walkers.
Yeah. Just
walking to Hawaii. But when, so in boat design and in boat thought, we're sort of thinking all that. And actually my son Doc, we just came from the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. That kid, he knows so much about hull design and about boat design. And
cool.
We were just talking the other day about how amazing it is. Some of the builders in South Korea, in the Sweden, and all those places. Mm-hmm. So we're actively looking at how we can take the smallest boat to do the biggest, longest passages, and in the most eco-friendly way. Boats run on wind and they run on diesel, but mostly they run in the areas that need it the most, they run on diesel.
Yeah.
There's no way around it because the trades don't really blow into some of these areas. So that's your option. It's like, if you sail, you're going to hit these routes. If you have the ability to sail and to motor, whether it's by electropropulsion, using solar energy and electromotors and a battery banks, or by just really efficient Tier 4 diesel, Tier 3, Tier 4 diesel, just really sipping diesel as a, really as a valuable, ultra valuable commodity. Then you can get to the areas, especially Western Pacific, that are really far from each other, the Northern Cook Islands and places like that, where it's hard to sail to. It's just not in the, traditional areas. And if you break down in those areas, there's not a lot of traffic there. So you can end up, very Gilligan's Island.
Which sounds cool, but it's really not.
and then you're Gilligan's Island with a brand new baby. That's going to be great.
Yeah, man. So kind of shifting from, over to like surfing a little bit, which is such a big part of the heritage of your family. As you're on the road or on a boat, space is always limited.
Yeah.
And you growing up surfing and probably surfed a range of different types of boards, short to long and everything in between. Kind of what's you today? What's kind of your quiver looking like?
Well, Doc rides all of Timmy Patterson's boards. I am partial to Hobies, and that is a really like what you said is really true. Like, so on our Land Rover, like we have a general longboard for friends or whoever wants to come out and whatever, and then Doc has two boards. He's got to have two, right?
Oh yeah, gotta have two.
And then so that leaves me with like space for one board, and so. I had I had Jerry Lopez Fun Board, which is like an 8-foot, really amazing board, and I busted that. So then I've been fooling around with Gary Larson at Hobie, makes a Buck Zaster model that is like, for me, it's like 8'11" or something like that, and it's like it's my go-to board. It's still kind of like you can ride it and on a bigger wave, and it's still like it's like a short board, long board. So I really love that. But I do wish I had the Buck Zaster, 10-footer for when it's small. Yeah. But I only got room for one board, and kayaks and
everything else.
You wouldn't believe how much we weighed ourselves the other day. I think we were actually in Canada, and our weight of our car was 9,200 pounds.
Wow. And that's not a big car. That's not a giant, huge truck. It's a Land Rover.
9,200 pounds. And I was just like, what the hell?
What do we have in here?
It's just, we have so much stuff that we take with us because, I guess, when I think about it, it's pretty much because we're not on a trip, it's just life. Like that's the way our lives work. And ultimately, I was kind of trained to be this way. That's what's so funny. Like, this is my training, is to sort of just go and feel at home without the structure of a home. That's what my dad taught me. That's what I'm teaching Doc. And that's just the way we're built.
Yeah, 100%. And what's funny too is when I go camping, I'm the same way, man. We have surfboards, spear guns, fishing gear. Yeah. And if you're going to go camping, like the majority of people, you might have a fishing rod. That's it. But like us, like you have this, maybe a skateboard for the kids and like this other stuff and an inflatable SUP or whatever that is. And because that's the stuff, that's what you do, but I saw a cool picture on Instagram. I love how people organize their stuff, like sprinter vans and your setup. I just love seeing how people have put stuff. And there's this cool picture of one of the kids, I think, shown on the back of the Land Rover with the spear gun kind of hung up in the corner, and it's just like I just love seeing how people organize all their stuff and cram it in, and you guys make it work because you have all the fun stuff that you need.
Well, and that's the thing. Like when we head up north, they were going north to surf at Seaside, Oregon, or something like that. On the way, you will hit the perfect day to spearfish, right? And yellowtail, just over the top, striper, and you're like, wow, if I only had all of my diving gear. So if you have it with you, it's like, oh, the ultimate. And then, like we'll be at the national park sometimes. We'll stop there for a day or two, and the stripers are insane. So you need long range beach fishing rods, which are super long and just constantly in your way, except for this one moment. And then at that moment, it's just the greatest moment. You catch big old striper using sand fleas, and then you just cut them up and cook them right there. And what could be better than that? So sort of every time I get annoyed by all the stuff that we take with us, I always remember, just the perfect A-frame peak coming in at some of these places, and to be able to just pull off the right boards at the right time. And it just doesn't happen anymore. If you think about it, like if I surf in this area, which is Orange County, I surf, whether it's Salt Creek, Doheny, San Onofre, Trestles, all those spots. Dude, it is crowded.
Oh, yeah.
Malibu, I surf Malibu a lot. Crowded. Like, it's not just crowded, it's insane.
Yeah.
So the experience of catching perfect little waves by yourself or with your kids, that is a new experience. That is not happening all the time anymore. It's become pretty damn rare, honestly.
It's super rare. Yeah, yeah. And like you guys are saying, you need to eject and go far north up the coast, or maybe go Baja or something, but away from the main metropolises of California, or, to get that, or like the backside of Santa Cruz Island or something. I mean, you got to get away to have that. It's funny when you get it, the waves could be like even mediocre or decent fun, but if it's uncrowded and you're by yourself with a couple friends or your kids, it's like the best day surfing ever because it's just you guys.
Because it reminds you of what you got into it to begin with. What was your feelings? Like, it's very like childlike. Baja is crowded. I hate to tell you, but you go to most of the named spots in Baja, it's everyone I run into in Orange County. The same people.
They're all trying to get away.
Holy crap. It is so funny. It's like, I can't get away from Colin McPhillips no matter where I go. There he is with his van. But that's why we enjoy Canada a lot, even though it's freakishly cold. There's definitely less people there. And the way to Canada, I mean, I don't want to give out my secrets, but there's definitely, and then outside of that, you got to get on a boat, hop on a boat, truly put your life at risk. And then the rewards are unreal. The rewards, it seems like nowadays you have to, if there isn't risk, there just does not appear to be the equal reward. You are not going to just roll down and have the ultimate experience at any of your favorite little waves any longer. So to get those truly back to nature moments, those back to nature experiences, you're going to have to pay the necessary price, with either treasure or with, with blood, because
that's right. And a whole lot of time.
Yeah, it's just not, the world has gotten smaller. I had a friend of mine that called me the other day, and he was like, "Hey, I really would like to surf the North Shore." And I was like, dude, I mean, that's pretty heavy, thought. So I called some friends of mine and I was like, "Hey, this friend of mine wants to surf the North Shore." And they were like, "Dude, is he crazy?" And I call him back. I'm like, "Dude, are you crazy?" And he's like, "Look, I'll pay any amount of money to get 2 waves at sunset."
Just two.
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, damn, that guy's smart. Like, that is super smart. Like, you know, take a buddy of yours who's like really, got it going on, say at Steamer Lane.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, dude, I want to set at Steamer Lane. And you're like, well, dude, you're not going to go to the peak at Steamer's Lane and just like grab one. You're like, no, bro, I want you to give me a surf lesson at Steamer Lane. I'll pay you $500 to take me out there. I think that more and more is becoming the experience.
Yeah.
Flat out. And you know as well as I do that there's a few guys that could be yo, my bro's going. And you'd be like, what?
And then
no, just let him go.
Just once, maybe twice, and that's it. But yeah, it'll happen.
But I think about it like Kelly, his wave, I think it's like $50 a wave, right? If you think about what it costs, like $50 a wave.
Wow.
And okay, that's about right. And why am I saying this? Because I've always said that the experience of getting a really great wave is a finite experience. It's not infinite. Your age, your abilities, the crowds, even the beaches are changing. So waves are worth fighting for. Waves are worth paying for. Waves are worth creating. Waves are worth travel. It's just the reality of it. There are so many surfers and there are just so many waves. And I think like a lot of things growing up, people were like, oh, that's infinite. That's just infinite. It's an infinite amount. Well, is there? Because that may have been true when my dad started out. My dad started out, there were like 7 guys that surfed, period, in the entire western seaboard. And then there was like a few guys in Hawaii. So that meant like you could roll on Malibu and there was not a person in the water for days and weeks and months, years, no one. Now, I've seen waves in the South Pacific that break as good as any waves on Earth. Day after day after day after day, not a soul riding them.
Yeah.
So that is a reality. That's actually true. It's like, oh, wow, that was true. That is no longer true and can only be true if you invest the treasure or the travel and accept the fact that waves are now rare. Bottom line is waves are rare. Now, does that mean that there's not a lot of waves breaking every day? No. But for you, and I don't care who you is, I don't care who it is, you could be anyone, Yeah. Waves are rare now.
Yeah.
And, so that's a deep part of it. So then that's the deep part of our travels is that waves and fishing and all those things that were so abundant are rare. So for us, we travel far. And then I think there's that big responsibility of like, whoa, let's, like Jacques Cousteau said, if you live an extraordinary life, you have no reason, you should not keep it to yourself. So then I think the promotion of extraordinary travel is important, not just for the personal adventure, but I think ultimately it will lead to people that are more aware and have less a blind spot about the way we treat plastic. I don't pick up garbage. I don't care about garbage. I don't care about paper and wood or somebody throws an apple or even cardboard and all that. The world knows how to get rid of that. It's worked billions of years to know how to get rid of all those things. But plastic, the world doesn't know how to destroy it. So technology made plastic, and technology is going to have to get rid of plastic.
Yeah,
and that's
true.
the bottom line. And it's expensive, and that's why, we started the foundation to sort of help us. We've invested all of our family treasure into this next voyage and some of the technology that will help us carry as much plastic as humanly possible. That's a big task. I know that it's bold, but we are well trained for it. My dad raised us in a weird way, and And I think that whole experience has sort of prepared us for this, like living in a house, that's hard. But,
Right.
but we could check in just privately, 4 weeks from now, and you'll see me in a totally different environment. You'll be like, what the hell? But I do feel that, like I said, like the ultimate goal is that the tide changes, and that the people that are so in love with travel also find themselves somewhat responsible for the resource that is the natural world. And I am, obviously I've seen the effects of the change in areas of climate around the South Pacific. I've seen that with my own eyes. I don't debate what I've seen. We can debate why, but I have certainly seen what people talk about. I'm even more concerned with the amount of floating pollutive debris that's in the water. It's unbelievable. And governments around the world are starting to notice and be like, whoa. I think it stems from the fact that a lot of the places in Asia where they use the rivers and lakes and the ocean as a way to throw away their garbage.
That's right.
And there's actually nothing wrong in that. I mean, they've been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of years. The advent of a water barrier, which is just plastic, it floats. It doesn't break down. And so now, and everything's made of it. So places where they dump their trash in the river now, there's a million plastic bottles there. Hundreds of millions, billions, billions and billions. And it's, I think first is that people recognize it. And then I think the solutions will follow. I'm very optimistic. I look at the future as an optimistic thing. And I think that's because we travel so much. Yeah. I think that travel gives you that sense of optimism. And I do think that ultimately human beings will turn it around. I do not believe that the world is going to end because we don't, we're good people. And at heart, I think that the majority of people care. I just think that in general, like there's a blind spot. People just like, oh, what? We've had that blind spot for a long time on a myriad of issues. And I think that travel is getting more and more people into noticing like, whoa, wait a minute. I think 2020 is going to be a good year for us. I think 2020 is going to be a good year, period. That's
good, man. So when you say optimistic, and that's based on a lot of the things you see when you travel, is optimism based on because you've been to places that are, call them pristine, call them untouched, or less polluted? You see enough of those areas where you still feel like there's a lot of good, pristine areas left in the world? Or is it the people in these various areas that you go visit that are active and aware and doing something about it, or maybe both?
I think that there are, I know this is going to suck when I say this. I don't think there are any pristine areas left. I haven't seen it. I have never been to an area where I did not see, maybe a varied few because of specific weather patterns. What makes me a believer is that the outliers of this issue have shown that it can be managed. So I've seen in New Zealand extreme examples of responsibility of nature. And I'm not talking about responsibility of nature connected to politics. Leaving politics aside, the responsibility of nature for all the people, both conservative and liberal, New Zealand has shown that you can do that. Some of the choices are hard, and some of the choices are just common sense. And I've seen just the general vibe of people who were completely blind to this issue wake up and be like, oh man, yeah. And I think that I don't think it takes all the population to evoke a certain amount of just general change direction. I think it's not that many people. Like, you don't need 100% of the people to be like, environmental warriors. It's really just like, okay, let's take a look at how we're throwing this stuff away, where it's getting in, and what we can do to reduce the amount of just the stuff that is really, really harmful to the environment. And then to sort of show that model to countries that really are totally blind. I mean, because really, when it comes down to it, so much of the stuff that I see in the water in the Western Pacific and in the Pacific did not come from the United States. And so that's, I think, ultimately the bigger goal. But again, like, folks in those countries are infinitely resourceful. Like, when they turn it around, like if you look at some of these countries that have gone from really just like farm countries to like creating the biggest economies in the world, that's what happens when you grow that quickly. And so I think that ultimately, if it comes down to where everybody sort of goes, wow, we're not doing that anymore, then people vote with their pocketbooks, and that will change. But it takes everyone staying on the gas. It takes, everyone focusing ultimately on it a little bit, having that tiny bit of responsibility. And I do think that, I think that we're all guilty, like we're all guilty.
It's true.
You get this funny thing. What happens is like, you take someone like Greta from Sweden, she has this message that is a galvanizing message for so many people. And then there are other people who just point out that, well, it may be hypocritical of her to sail across the ocean when it took 3 people to fly back and all these things. And I think that's missing the point. The greater point is, what should happen is that Greta should speak her voice, and then people should take a look at themselves and go, oh, what am I doing that is really just over the top? What are we doing that is over the top just in my personal behavior that I can reduce? And I think in small companies, in big companies, in families, small families, big families, the plastic water bottle can be reduced infinitely, right?
Yeah, there's easy wins there.
Yeah, and I think I think everyone is criticizable. Greta and everyone is guilty. I mean, there's no way that we've built our entire world around this material, and it's a great material. I mean, what are you going to do? Stop putting oil in? It's just not going to happen. And I think the realistic thing is to protect and lead by example. In your area, Jackie Nunez started this whole straw discussion, and people say to her all the time, "It's just straws. What do you?" And it's not straws. It's this opening conversation of, dude, do you really need to have a cup? And you can't, and those are the things that are changing. So that's why I'm optimistic, because people like Jackie Nunez, because of people like the Plastic Pollution Coalition, because of Oceana, because of people that are just shaking the trees now, because of Greta, people hate her or love her, but at least we're having the conversation. It's not about the straw. It's about the conversation. What other things can we just delete from our need, Yeah.
And I think, as you mentioned, the lead by example is key. And when you overlay that with social media, example, like my kids, I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. They're on Instagram checking stuff out. And I was scanning your Instagram last night. They're like, hey, what's this? And there's a picture of you with your son, Doc, doing something cool, like shooting a fish or you're hauling a fish. It's like, but just in the comments, you just mentioned a little something, again, not being preachy, but just like, hey, pick up some plastic, or just a little bit of message. that starts to resonate. So the kids, even though they're looking for, some guy throwing a huge air on a wave or whatever that might be, when we're able to layer in just that sort of subtle message about, picking up some trash, pollution, plastics, it seeps in. The kids are resonant. Yeah. They're not going to go for plastic pollution, advocacy Instagram pages. They're not going to do that. But when like stuff you're doing and others, it's a lead by example with a little sprinkle that in, the kids pick up on it,
Yeah. And I think that is the truly, changing part. I think that's the part that actually changes the way the world works. I know a lot of kids that are in that 17 and under, 18 and under, that just will never use a plastic water bottle. They'll never use a straw. They're just different. They just have been raised, they just don't do that. And I think that that's the goal. You get enough people in that mode, and then, places in Asia start to go, well, if they're not buying it, and I mean, I love the enjoyment of the modern world and all the things that brings. I am not trying to live a life that is free, totally free of everything that, can damage, the earth or the world. We damage it. That's, it's no way. I mean, everyone says paper. Oh, use paper. But have you ever seen a paper mill? A pulp? It's like, have you ever seen the way they make these lithium ion, whatever, batteries? It's whoa. I think the idea is to just do the least harm. Nobody's perfect. There is nobody. I don't care if you're composting your own poop. There is nobody that is perfect. We are beings of this planet. I don't think the idea is to criticize Greta for the things that make her, in your mind, hypocritical. I think the idea is to sort of say, what can we do? It doesn't have to be so extreme, but if you find yourself and you look at your green bin and you've got just full of items that could be replaced by just glass, it's just ridiculous. It's just kind of an old-fashioned kind of, 1940s, 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, where it's like, oh, I have a jar and then I use that jar, and that's just kind of cool. I mean, it's just you don't even notice. It's like, oh, that's when people come over to eat with us, in our little rig or whatever. They're always amazed. It's like, damn, dude. It's like, how'd you think of that? It's like, oh, we just reuse that deal. It's like, wow. And that's the one funny thing about plastic is it's not reusable. It's like generally unreusable. And that's wild, because we don't reuse plastic water bottle. Like, if we end up with a plastic water bottle for some reason, or plastic water or whatever, it's like, I used to just kind of reuse them. And now I'm like, God, it just gives you an idea what a pollutant it is, right? Like, I really don't recommend that you reuse them. So if you hump it into certain places, like, you got to bring your own water, obviously, that deal. And then, it's, you stop somewhere and you blew it somehow and you end up with like those 1 gallon water jugs. You can't really reuse them, especially the water sitting in the sun. But you could take a gas can, bro. I've done it. A gas can, metal gas can, and just wash it out a little bit and fill it with water. You're golden.
That's reusable. Yeah.
And so that, I think, is the difference. It's not just like knocking people for their being alive, because people get frustrated. Just like, oh, wait a minute, you want me to ride a horse or something? It's not that. It's just like, be wise to the responsibility of the resource that's there. That's it, man.
Yeah, man.
And then more people do that, then suddenly it's just not cool to be wasteful. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is, this is not cool to be wasteful. So that's
Yeah,
why,
yeah.
that's why we have the nonprofit to say, okay, we're going to stoke you and lead by example. And this is some of the things that we do. And if you feel the same way and you want to do this too, then more power to you. And along the way, for us, it's not for everybody, we're going to try to pick up as much plastic pollution that we can as a family.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Love it, man. I think it's a model that everybody who hears this and everybody who is even breathing the air of the earth can follow. And so I appreciate you guys. You're putting your energy as a family, your immediate family, your larger family, creating the foundation, leveraging this rich heritage that your father started years ago, and parlaying that and growing it into something great today, man. And so in 2020. Good luck on the boat. And I'll put in the show notes links to your YouTube channel, your Instagram. Definitely, and for folks listening who want to dive more into Adam's past as a kid and his family growing up, surf-wise, is a rad documentary. Watch a bunch of pieces. That's another probably 5-hour episode we could just
don't watch it with your parents or anybody because it's really dirty. It's dirty. Anyway. Thank you so much.
It's awesome, man. But yeah, good luck with everything, man. And again, thank you for
problem.
I know you're tired. You got Solomon, the young guy. You're what, 2 weeks old, 3 weeks
3
old
weeks
now?
old. 2 weeks old.
Oh man, awesome.
And I'll check
man.
back in with you like in 4 weeks, and we'll see the difference.
Awesome. I love that, man.
All right,
cool.
Man.
Well, Adam, thank you so much, buddy, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Cheers. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to another podcast episode. Can't do it without you, and so thrilled to have you here supporting myself and the podcast and all the guests continually. Always appreciate a positive rating on your podcast app, whether it be Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. Just helps grow the podcast and spread awareness. So thanks for that. And then any social media mentions, always super appreciative. And if you know somebody who you think would be great to have on the podcast to share about their ocean life, please hit me up. I'd love to chat with them. Or if you think you'd like to, let me know. Email is josh@thisoceanlife.tv. All right. Thanks, guys.